Coming up today on Locked On Texas Tech. Pop, 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 pop.
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We're going to start this thing off right. Raider! Everything runs through Lubbock.
Great to see you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks for making us your first listen every day on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts with the only Chris Level. I'm Casey Cowan, and Chris wrapping up the week with something that is pleasing to me. We've got Texas Tech basketball news to talk about, and it's a little bit of a unique circumstance, I guess, as compared to the majority of our lives spent as college basketball fans, because I guess we'll sit here and I'll at least somewhat celebrate the return of a guy who never left, that being Pop Isaacs, who indicates his commitment to Texas Tech basketball. Correct me if I missed something, but this was not actually one of the Red Raiders that did ever throw his hat into the portal or announced anything of any kind other than to wrap up the week. Now we know he's going to play basketball for Grant McCasland. So exciting, because we were in a realm of anything is possible with any of these players. Some you really wanted to keep. Pop Isaacs personally was at the very top of my list. I wanted him to remain a Red Raider, but he never actually left the program either, Chris. So I don't know if it's a little redundant or maybe just like Ludacris's first album. He's back for the first time, never left to begin with. Pop Isaac's going to be a Red Raider, and I think most are considering that good news today, right?
Yeah, and this is the way this is going to work. I just wouldn't assume anybody is back until they tell you that they are. And I think that was the case here. You know, Pop more than
including
most.
Us.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, fair point. Pop more than most he had options. I think he could have gotten in the portal. He would have had plenty of suitors. And there was. I can assure you there was no guarantee that he was coming back for sure. I think that he really wanted to be back. But I think there's a lot that goes into that, and you know, scheme and new coach and all that stuff gets thrown into it. But you know, he's been working out with Coach McCasland and you know, the other guys on staff. You know, in recent days, I think you know, and this is. So I think what it tells you is a couple of things, because let's just talk the building the roster now that he is going to be a piece of that. I felt like basketball-wise last year when you had Harmon and Pop on the floor at the same time and you're playing them as many minutes as you were, you're small. Okay, this is just the way it was in the Big 12 Conference. I mean, when you switch everything on defense, you know, you're just undersized with both of them out there. So we know Harmon will not be back. I wasn't certain what Coach McCasland would ultimately would he want Pop back? Would Pop want to be back? I mean, you know, and all that stuff. But it appears like it fits. What it tells me though is that, you know, he's okay with smaller guards, which we already knew. And Pop's not tiny, don't get me wrong, but I mean, Big 12 wise. You know, you're 6 foot 6'1", you end up with somebody 6'5" guarding you, and it creates a problem. You know, and Pop wasn't perfect. Look, he was a double-digit scorer. I think some would say inefficient at times because of how many threes he takes and misses. Most people also choose to remember a lot of the makes and like the games where he goes for 4 or 5. I think one issue that Grant McCasland may have, though, is like, you know, the turnover bug. That is the part that needs to get, you know, fixed and all that. But it also tells me I'd be willing to bet you that this potentially ends any pursuit of Tyler Perry, the Conference USA Player of the Year and Coach McCasland's previous head coach at North Texas, because I just I don't think that you can have, because if you bring Pop back, you're looking to play him 20 to 25 minutes a night at least. If you were to bring in somebody like Tyler Perry, who was the Conference USA Player of the Year, as we've talked about at North Texas last year under Coach McCasland, this is also somebody that's going to be expecting to play a ton. I think you would have the same exact problem that you had this year and be woefully undersized. I may be in the minority there. I've had multiple conversations with basketball people that think the same way I do, and it doesn't mean that you can't have smaller players. It's just you have to be limited in what you have on your roster as far as that goes and how you employ them. So those are the
They
first.
better
things
be AI.
Yeah,
They better be Allen Iverson if they're going to be dominion. I mean, really, you've got to play.
Yeah.
You better play big if you're small, because it ain't gonna.
That's
And
right.
you're right, in the Big 12 conference, especially, man. And you think about some of those teams that Tech has had in recent seasons that you really liked, and you're just long all over. So you've had that kind of team. But I'm thinking too, when you mentioned Davion Harmon and Pop Isaacs together, not only small, but you've got ball dominant guards. And so I'm really, really hoping that Texas Tech is able to find a point guard that is a distributor, because I think you'll have some scorers, right? I thought that for a second was where you were going to go. You went with the size aspect, which is certainly true, but you've touched on this also before many times during the season, kind of the just incongruent puzzle pieces, I guess, in a way, that were put together on the floor, as in a point guard who wants to score and a shooting guard who wants to shoot, and yada, yada, yada. So some may look at that as old school, but Chris, if I've ever seen a team with a scoring point guard, I've thought, they're not going to go all the way. They may have some really nice days, but aside from some very specific examples, I like to build one in a certain way. And I think some of that, some of the reasoning why some people like to do that was on display this year. Did you see that?
Yeah, I think you were honestly at your best in February when Harmon was carrying you now, but it couldn't be sustained. I also think Pop was out at that time. If you're talking about just a scoring guard, I would like a playmaker. I would like, again, I'm asking for a lot there, but I think that if Pop can be something like this, and I'll tell you the way I'm thinking about this whole thing, because it's not necessarily offense or scoring, but we'll get into that in a second. But I think if Pop can just be a better, because he's a high level passer. He sees the game. He sees things that happen, or excuse me, about to happen. He sees it way before that, and I think there's some anticipation there, and that's why, summertime and getting a roster together and chemistry is so key, just because you want guys playing together and understanding what they like to do and what they want to do and all those things. But you're fine if he's your kind of your point guard or your lead guard or your smaller guy. And again, I keep saying small. That's not necessarily fair. He's just, compared to some other Big 12 guards, there's you're missing, but he plays big, as you said. But I think the way we have to think about this is like defensively. That's where it just showed up, and you got, you were outmanned big time, because Pop, whether he's actually playing the point guard on the other end or not, and bringing the ball up and initiating offense and all that, he can guard the opposing point guard. Okay, that's going to be, and he's quick enough and kind of mature enough. If he gets switched off on, he can handle, getting, matched up on a big or somebody in the post and whatever, because his hands are quick and he can make a play on the ball and all those things. I don't like it if you've got two of those guys, because at some point the offense is going to find exactly what they want to pick on, and you just don't have enough on the floor to defend it in some cases, because the coaching in this league is really good, and I think that you are scouted really good, and so but I liked the news yesterday. I think it's clearly a building block going forward. This is somebody that again can get better with you going forward, and I'm just now interested to see what they add to it. But you've kept two members of your freshman class. And I would love to see them keep a few more, but I don't know. We'll take these announcements as we can get them. But I would wait until you hear from these kids before you assume that they're back.
Yeah, whether they've announced anything prior or otherwise, getting into the transfer portal or not. That also means we get to keep the number one Twitter follow of 2023, as named by Locked On Texas Tech. Pop's dad. Call him Zorro. That's the Z you see flashing over the screen right now. So I'm thankful for that as well. The context of Pop Isaacs as a freshman, very encouraging, very exciting, but I think it was also, Chris, within the context of a disappointing team at large. And early on, you're like, all right, where are the guys that are going to put their nuts on the table? Do we have any of those? And all of a sudden it was like, there's a freshman here doing that. So I think that enhanced his glow even a little bit more because he was just completely unafraid immediately. And the efficiency thing improved as the season went on, I think. Certainly some of the turnovers improved as the season went on. But, yeah, it's still a long, long way to go. That's the context in which I was viewing Pop Isaacs in year one. So very, very exciting. By no means perfect, but I think you're really going to have to dig deep as a player because we know the dude offensively can flash. Can you be a defender? Someone in the YouTube comments a few shows back, I guess, when I was heaping too much praise on Pop Isaacs for their liking, told me Pop Isaacs has never seen a defensive stance, and I guess that was a concern to them. So we'll see in what other ways he can round out his game. Look, if you want to be a pro, you want a chance to make a career out of it, you better round out your game. And everybody has a chance when they get into this or onto this level, Chris, to figure out what they are and what they aren't. So you want to commit to the work, commit to the process. You can probably improve those things you aren't. And maybe Pop will do that. Glad to see him trying to do that, at least in a Red Raider uniform for a little longer. We bring up defense there, and we might as well stick with it because while we'll switch sports coming up ahead, I want to stay on the defensive end or the defensive side of the football. Switching cliches on the fly, we are professionals. Don't try this at home. Want to get to Tim DeRuyter's guys, and one guy specifically that Coach McGuire talked about this week, Chris. We'll hear from Coach McGuire coming up ahead, that is as big potentially of an X factor as anyone in any phase of the game for Texas Tech next season. We're getting to it next on Locked On Texas Tech. Glad to have you along for the ride on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network, coming at you from west of the 100th Meridian, where it's really going down. Greetings from the great state. If you're here, God bless you. If you're not here, get here soon. He's Chris Level. I'm Casey Cowan. Switching gears a bit. We were in a defensive frame of mind a moment ago. We're staying there. But talking football, Joey McGuire and the Red Raiders obviously rolling on through spring camp. Got about a little over a week, I guess I would say, left here. We'll get to spring game conversation. And then, of course, some of what we learned in spring game church today. I don't know if your folks ever had you write something down after church to make sure that you were conscious during the service. But I went through that exercise a few times, and they got tired of hearing that Jesus loved me. Yes, you established that already. Let's move on to another bullet point. Anyway, happy Easter, everybody. Chris, let's get to a comment from Joey McGuire, because really since you made a comment a couple of weeks ago, I've been thinking about this a little bit differently. I was very excited for Texas Tech's defense heading into 2023. Certainly excited about the defensive front with guys like Bradford and Hutchings, cornerstone pieces returning. But you alluded to some thought that possibly as a group, as a collective, there is no, maybe peak of the mountain like Tyree Wilson was a season ago. But as a collective, your mountain range is impressive. It's strong and possibly even more impactful than it was a season ago. That comment from you got my attention. I know some others certainly took notice of that as well that are out there in the Locked On Texas Tech galaxy. And so when you consider that possibility, that leads me to really pay close attention to anything that Coach McGuire or others are saying about that defensive front. I want to get to some general thoughts on that, and one guy who really could be an X factor for Texas Tech defensively, that being Josiah Pierre. But first, let's take a listen to Coach McGuire on the big boys, man in the line up front defensively.
Man, I'll tell you the guy that, he played 25 reps in the bowl game due to Banks. Really pleased with him. Every day he's really shown up. He's playing at a high level. Boog's going to play great. I'm also excited with our ends. We're really deep at those outside linebackers. When you're talking about Miles Cole, when you're talking about Steve Linton, Harvey Dyson, Charles Esters had a really, really good spring. So excited about the D-line. Quincy had a hip flexor, came back today. It was good to see him back out there. Feel really good about him.
Am I listening to skeet shooting in the back?
I apologize for the firing squad. We were recording this near a local communist stronghold.
Yeah, I'd love to hear.
Hockey practice? I don't know. Come on, man.
You have lots of names that I think even myself aren't necessarily super familiar with because we haven't seen them play a lot. Look, I'm familiar with a lot of these names through recruiting and all that, but these are all untapped guys that I think Joey and staff are basically saying, okay, you've been here for a year or three. Now it's time to take the next step and improve. And some of these guys are highly recruited. And I tell you, the one name that wasn't mentioned is because he's not going through spring right now, and he's a young one too. And I think he may be the best out of everybody that Joey mentioned is Isaac Smith. The redshirt freshman from last year out of Oklahoma that really started to flash in the last part of the season. He's kind of one of those edge guys, tall kid at 6'6". He's added a ton of good weight and is very, very fast. And just I know that if they were selling arms like his at a store, I'd pay good money for him. After seeing him up close about a week ago, but he got hurt in that bowl game. That dirty play by I think it was the left tackle for Ole Miss. He stepped on his hip and caused Isaac to get hurt and all that stuff. But he's missing the spring. But see, he's a name nobody's talked about this spring because he's not going through it. But he's somebody, man. I'm telling you. He's going to be a problem, and he's got it all in front of him. And that's a name right there that wasn't even mentioned with all the other names that were the Esters and Banks and Dyson and all those guys. Because most just think about a Dataray because he came in as a freshman, and he kind of skipped all the guys that we just mentioned. He just passed them up. And so you kind of start to assume – man, I just don't know if Banks, Esters, and Dyson are any good right now. Trayvon McAlpine, I think, is another one. You don't know where it stands. But again, sometimes it takes every rose blooms at a different time. So sometimes it takes a year or two.
You don't want to go into it. Every rose blooms at the right time in spring or fall camp. And we've got an Adidaray, we got a Duda. These are just fun names to say, so I hope they factor in.
And a Charles,
over and over and over.
Yeah,
and a Charles. Yeah. And a Charles. Come on, spice it up, Chuck. Spice it up. We'll have to come up with something else there. Chris, I want though to turn to one more specific guy before we move along. A guy that I do feel like could be an X factor for Texas Tech because you're asking Josiah Pierre to do some different things this season when he really progressed last year as a guy that became impactful where he was, I guess, closer to the line of scrimmage. Coach McGuire also talked about this week, his ability, not only from his time here at Texas Tech, but earlier in his football career to kind of play in that space back as a natural linebacker or a little bit closer to the line of scrimmage. So I'm sure he'll continue to mix it up a little bit this season, but how did we come to where we are with Josiah Pierre this offseason and considering some different things? And where do you think he kind of maybe is a fit, or where does he have some room to grow there and become what they're asking him to be?
Yeah, need and I think comfortability. Maybe is that a word, or comfort level? Yeah, I don't know if I phrased that correctly, but I think one you have a need at the middle linebacker spots, and I say the two interior linebacker spots, the Mike and Will that they call them, the weak side and the middle. Because of Krishan Merriweather and Kosai Eldridge. And I don't know when we're going to get word on Kosai Eldridge. This is frustrating. He's kind of now at the tail end of the spring. I don't know where that stands. Because if we get word at any point, that is massive news for this defense and someone like Josiah Pierre, who we'll talk about now. I think, though, that because of the names that we just mentioned that are some of your edge guys, and because of Linton, because of an Isaac Smith, because of some of these other names that Coach McGuire was mentioning, I don't want to say it's a luxury, but now you don't have to employ Josiah Pierre at that position anymore. I say comfort level or comfortability because he would rather do that. He would rather be at one of those interior linebacker spots. He's done this before. Coach DeRuiter was unaware of this until, when he showed up, a year ago or whatever it was when he got on the job. JP was at kind of an edge, one of those hybrid roles. And so you just, you never had a question to ask, and you liked your two interior linebackers. And so I think he's comfortable with it. You kind of need it right now. And Jacob Rodriguez is another one of your studs that is likely to be a starter right there at one of those two interior spots, not going through spring. And so that and depth at corner are kind of my two, biggest concerns about the defense, and if Pierre can nail down that spot and Rodriguez comes back and you've got Tyreek Matthew, you've got, Ty Kana and Ben Roberts and some other guys, boy, you start to feel a lot about it. Now you start to really feel good about it if Kosai Eldridge comes back, because I could even envision a scenario where you could have Pierre kind of even floating back and forth between interior linebacker and doing some of that edge stuff, because he knows it. He's older and knows all that stuff. At that point, you're really, really deep with your defense. But we haven't gotten that word yet, so Pierre is kind of filling a need, and that's where he wants to be. But I'm all about it.
Before we're out of here today, let's stick with football, but a different kind of conversation, because actually something exciting now to observe. It's what I'm calling 50-yard line watch. But first, today's episode brought to you by Built Bar. And if you're looking for a delicious snack, but you don't want all the sugar, don't want all the calories, I got what you need, buddy. That's Built Bar or Built Puff. What makes them so good? For starters, covered in 100% real dark chocolate. Tastes so great, you're not going to think they're good for you. Unbelievable flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, cookies and cream. Not sure how they do it, but they maintain amazing macros while tasting like a candy bar. What's even better, they're healthy. Only 130 calories and 4 grams of sugar with a whopping 17 grams of protein. And now you don't have to wait to get a box. You can always go to built.com to get your specialty flavors. But also right now, you can walk into your local Walmart or Sam's Club and pick up a 4-bar box if you're at Walmart, or if you hit Sam's Club, 13-bar box with hit flavors, brownie batter puff, or the churro puff. You can thank me later after you try your first Built Bar. 50-yard line watch. We get an announcement this week, Chris, that LED lighting headed for Jones Stadium, along with a new playing surface. So will Texas Tech do the right thing at the 50-yard line? A question for another day. And by another day, I mean every damn day until we see what they do at the 50-yard line. But either way you slice it, it's an exciting time, because you've got some further investment here, and we have seen across college football some of these things used in a really unique and cool way as far as the lighting is concerned. And hopefully this will be something that now Texas Tech is able to treat their fans, students, and student athletes too as well. Excited for it.
Yeah, they are. Okay, so a new turf doesn't sound like it's super exciting news, and I already know where you're going with this, because you want that old double T at midfield. And I want the double T, Chris.
Okay, it's just the double T. I'm tired of this. I'm tired of this anti-double T marketing that's taken us all by. People call it the old school, the flat. Nope,
it's just the double T. One. Yeah, no,
then there's the 3D one.
I would love that. I would love the original one as well. I love that logo on the helmets. I'm just a big fan of it. I don't know what they'll ultimately do there as far as design goes, but I mean, And you mark my words, whenever this stuff starts getting teased, somebody will have some fun at somebody's expense and show somebody a fake picture of red turf or something. It won't be true.
Oh yeah, we're gonna have some drones.
Oh
We're
yeah,
gonna have guys like on a grassy knoll over the fence, like
Yeah.
the tramps on the railroad or whatever.
There is the company that puts this product in. I actually know the guy that will for Hellas, the company that does it. That I think this is going to be his project, and they've done some stuff in Lubbock as well. And one of the products, I don't know if this particular field will have this product, but they've changed the dynamic here. And most fans or people don't even think about it. If you ever spend any time on one of these turf fields, however, you're gonna get what I'm about to describe, because it is real. You know, when they first came up with these turf fields, they had the ground up black pellets, just rubber tires or whatever, that kind of made it softer and whatever. And you could see, you know, when a guy drags his toe trying to catch a ball out of bounds, you could see that those black pellets flying up. They now actually have it, but when the stuff gets hot, it is incredibly hot, to the point where you can shoot like a temperature gauge at it, and you can get in the 130, 140 degree temps, you know, in the heat of the summer, or even in September, because I've been down there before. I mean, when Under Armour's cleats first came out, it would melt the glue on these kids' shoes. It would get so hot on these fields. And I'm not even joking. I watched it. They're like, well, the whole soul just pulled off. The Under Armour guys over there.
Terrific Under Armour.
God bless. What are we doing? But they've come out with a new product. It's called Ecotherm. It's a little green. They're little green, like, you know, balls, tiny, you know, and they drop the temperature down 20 to 25 degrees, I think, on average of these fields when it gets really hot. So it's supposed to soak up the sun. They're heavy and soft enough to where. So anyway, the general fan won't care about that. I'm probably most excited about the lights because there are times in night games where there are corners of the stadium where it gets a bit, I don't know.
Thank you.
Dark or hazy.
Dude, it changed.
Yeah.
It changed when they changed the lighting standards on the east side. Like, I don't even care if these lights never flash or do any tricks. If you will just lighten the stadium back up from the days of my youth. I mean, okay, so I know I can be a little anal and get bogged down in the details. So I was just kind of wondering, like, is it just me, or is it like weird over here now? And look, East Side Rider, you're listening to right here. So I'm right there in the thick of it. And some of the things I see them doing in the shadows over there now, we need that lit back up, baby. There's families in the building. But you've noticed it. It's a real thing, right?
Yeah, I just think in certain night games, you know, there's just like it. I don't know, and I'm almost like, man, there's something. It feels like it's a little bit. There's a few spots, but this was needed. I guess bottom line, I think there's a lot of bells and whistles you can employ with these new lights. I think they're cheaper to operate on a daily basis. And you know, yearly basis or whatever. And I think you can do some different things. And everybody has talked about this, and I was there and a part of it, and I was very impressed by it. Some will say this is really, really cool. Some will say this is JV and Bush League and all that stuff. I don't really, you know, care what side of the spectrum you're on, but the ability to kind of turn the lights off instantly, flash them, or do something different with it when you score a touchdown and all that stuff, I'm all about, because going to college football games, most people don't go to games anymore, or as much. You know, the attendance is kind of slowly waned over years, depending on where you are. But when you go, it's all about the pomp and the circumstance, man. I want pyro. I want the sizzle. Yeah. I want the steak too. But I want the sizzle, man. And so if you can shut the lights down or flash them after a score or whatever, because whenever NC State scored, it's like the lights kind of went out. I'm like, man, is this like some pro wrestling deal and some bad guys about to sneak up in the middle of the ring when they shut the lights off, like Kane or something? I don't know. But I was like, what's going on? Is something to break? No, it was all on purpose. And they, unfortunately, that night they kept doing it over. The lights kept going off because they kept scoring touchdowns. Yeah. But anyway, that's my opinion on the lights. I love it. Yeah.
Some people will be for it, some people will be against it, and some will be epileptics, and we should keep them in mind as well. Be careful out there at Jones Stadium this season. I just hope. Go ahead.
Well, and I was going to say, this is part of this renovation. I'd be willing to bet you that by the end of this process, you're going to get new video board and sound system as well. I don't know if they can get into all that yet. I don't know
North
if
End.
Oh yeah, I think on the main one, I think that will likely be replaced. And I think sound system too. They've had to bring speakers down on the field to get, I think, the volume to where they want it, and to get the, whatever. And so I do think that some of this renovation. And again, it hasn't been announced, and so it's clearly not going to be for this year. But I'd be willing to bet you that by the end of whenever they're done with everything, you're going to get not just the 2 video boards on the south end and the corners, as we've seen in the renderings and everything. But I bet you get a new one or an updated one in the north end as well. But I bet it comes with a new sound system as well.
Interesting. Was not that long ago when you were excited as a Tech fan to see going up what you got there right now. But the arms race never stops, I suppose. I just hope they're able to find something cool to do with the lighting, and we don't, prepackage, assemble it in some corny, lame way. We've done that before. I don't know if you remember, like the fourth quarter song thing that was supposed to be, and then it was not organic at all. It'd come on the speaker. All right, everyone. Get ready for the fourth quarter song. Like, I just hope we don't get any, all right, 3, 2, get ready for the lighting show. I mean, come on. Let's come up with something that's going to get the people going without having to give them too many instructions or anything. I mean, let's just continue to be probably still a place that revolves around the football on the field. But if not, a party in some other aspect, I guess, Chris, because, man, you talk about that sizzle, and it's all over now. You watch college football or whatever it is, from stadium to stadium to stadium, people are finding ways to innovate and keep the fans entertained. And I don't know if there's any substitute for interesting football. That'll probably get the butts there more consistently than anything, because you can do all you want with bells and whistles. If the team stinks, people would rather be in the parking lot, if they're there at all, I suppose, under a canopy. But you've got an opportunity here with so much excitement surrounding the team and what's going to be going down in your stadium, maybe to really take things to the next level. So I hope that they've got somebody in place to be able to do that in an innovative and cutting edge, if you will, in some ways, kind of way. But don't you forget about Red Steagall, all right? You don't have to cut every edge. Tradition matters. Chris, enjoyed the time all week, man. Interesting stuff we were able to get into. Some good news with Pop Isaacs to wrap up the week, and can't wait to see what Monday holds. We'll get back around with you on the other side of the weekend. Thanks for the time as always.
Absolutely. Let's do it. Keep hope alive. Have a good weekend, everybody. We'll talk to you next time.
He's Chris Level. I'm Casey Cowan, thanking you for making us your first listen every day on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. Hope to see you back on the other side of the weekend on Monday, right here on Locked On Texas Tech.